land classified into Group A. B, a tax of $0 on all parcels of land classified into Group B. 2, the first installment of $195 shall be due and payable on or before the second day of March 2021. The second installment of $195 shall be due and payable on the 31st day of August 2021. A percentage addition of 10% and 10% of the amount thereof shall be added to all taxes remaining unpaid after the said dates. In addition, taxes remaining unpaid on the first day of March next following the date upon which taxes are levied shall bear interest at the rate prescribed by the Lieutenant Governor and Council under the Taxation Rural Property Act as set out under Section 717 of the Local Government Act. For this bylaw may be cited as the Taxation Bylaw 2021. So the bylaw has been read, second of that second reading. Would second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion. Ted, anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add to that.
Eve?
So parcel B am I mistaken? We can't relook at that, or we're going to do that next year, or were we not discussing? Well, first of all, did we find out how many B parcels we have and whether we were able to? You found out that we were able to levy parcel taxes on these lots?
So yeah, that's good information for me to add. We have the ability to charge parcel taxes on any Group B lot which has a water main fronting the lot, or that where we have concrete plans to install a water main which would affront that lot. And in the past, Union Bay Improvement District has not charged parcel taxes to lands that did not pay their CEC or had not yet paid their CEC, so they're just raw land. Given that we now have a water treatment plant that is substantial in providing excellent water, and that water quality may in fact improve the value of properties, it may be prudent for us to look at whether we should be charging parcel taxes for any lots that meet the conditions to be charged a parcel tax. In working with our administration, we've discussed, whether it would be appropriate just to do that right now, or whether it would be more appropriate for us to seek legal guidance, properly form this out, and look to perhaps change the parcel or change the way we charge parcel taxes at a future time. And I might draw on Gary here to advise or provide some additional information on how we might approach adding parcel taxes to Group B lands. And then we could discuss, would we use that to reduce? If we did such a thing, we'd need to know how many properties we could add it to. And that would take some work on the part of our public works superintendents to determine which lands qualify. And then we would decide whether we would reduce taxes with that, or whether we would use those additional taxes to create greater capital reserves. So Gary, I know maybe you could provide a little bit more background on this.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly do concur. I think this is a project that's worth pursuing, notwithstanding the conversion process. I think we need to look at this. My understanding is that if a line fronts a particular parcel and that parcel is capable of being connected, that parcel is ordinarily subject to charging. So I think it's definitely worthwhile you looking at that. I don't think it's something that should be deferred. I think the steps would be, there's got to be some field work to confirm the potentially eligible parcels. Step two, I think, would be to get some legal confirmation that yes, in fact, you can do that. Again, I'm pretty convinced you can. Been down that before. And then as part of that legal confirmation, putting a strategy in place to, because you're going to get some pushback for sure, put a strategy in place to be transparent, advise the public that this is what's being proposed, set an implementation date, and then a strategy of what those steps would be, and have that confirmed and very transparent going into it, so that there's no surprises. You have to, at the end of the day, basically take action to enforce compliance. So I would recommend that this is something we should look at early in the year and start working towards a strategy of bringing those parcels on board, and not necessarily wait until conversion, post-conversion.
I would agree with Gary's suggestion. I'm just a little confused. It seems like we have to make a decision about the parcel taxes for 2021 today. So we work on this, and yes, everything is confirmed. We can actually add parcel taxes to Lot B. Does that now wait until, that's where I'm confused. Is that collection of those taxes will now wait until 2022?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I think that there's an accounting piece, there's a financial piece, but there's also an implementation piece. I think that definitely it's something that's worth pursuing, but I'm not necessarily saying that you would start the wheels in motion and defer any implementation until 2022. Ordinarily, that's what you'd probably do. You'd start the process early in the year and then work up towards implementing it the fire. But I'm not necessarily sure that this has to be that complex. And it's something that I think we should be looking at with a view to implementing as soon as possible and as soon as legally permissible.
Yeah, I would agree with.
My question would be, how would we phrase this bylaw in order to allow us the flexibility, or would we indeed just come back and amend this bylaw when we'd done the work?
Yeah, I think what you'd do is you'd be coming back, you'd be amending the bylaw or introducing an entirely new bylaw scheme, rather than I don't think there's anything you can do in this bylaw. I think the most important piece is to do your homework, outline the strategy and the steps, be transparent, go public, put the notice out there that we're going to be doing this effective whatever day or whatever month or whatever year, and then bring in the necessary legislation and bylaw changes or amendments or a new bylaw at that time.
I think it would, pardon me, Mr. Chair, I think it would have to be a new bylaw for B lots that are currently not being built on but have a water line running across their frontage. I think it'd have to be a new bylaw altogether.
Eve, any comments?
Oh, well, no, just my concern is, well, I mean, that how much work would that take the Public Works superintendent to do? But I guess that's a question for when this project gets going.
And really what I have to do, it's 116 properties. I have to get the address out of the billing program for all those properties to give to Danny so he can look them up on his map.
Okay.
That is work that probably should be done anyway, just in terms of inventory. But yeah, for sure, there's work involved.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I'd like to do is take a look at the system map, take a look at the parcel. It may not be as complex as you may think in terms of confirming which parcels are eligible and should be taxation and which are clearly not. So the first thing I'd like to do is just take a look at that system map and the parcels that we're talking about.
Hmm. Okay.
I'd be curious what Danny thought in
Mhm.
terms of parcels that could be charged.
We would have to, like you say, I don't know which ones they are
Yeah.
till I know. I could probably do 90% of the work off a map.
Hmm.
Or even maybe 100% of the work off a map.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that may, yeah, I think that may be possible.
Okay.
I think we're all in agreement with the need to look into it. So is there a motion that needs to happen? What?
It's already on my list. Don't look into it early in the year.
Okay.
Okay, so any other discussion of this? Is there any other changes that are noted or anything that we need to do with respect to this, or shall we just move to vote on this?
Let's move to vote.
Everybody in agreement? All in favor of this, the bylaw as presented in the second read, bylaw number 285 as presented in the second reading?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, so we are now on to our second last item, which is development referrals reports. The background of this is that we have received 2 referrals from the Ministry of Transport with respect to some developments in Union Bay Estates. And we've received a second rezoning application from the CBRD for a new development called Upper Island Developments. And so I'm going to turn this over to Gary Nason. He's prepared a report for us with respect to these items, and we can hear from Gary and then ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be fairly brief because I did, prepare a report, and I'm not going to go through it line by line, but I noticed there are some members of the public who are listening in at the meeting. So I just want to summarize where we're at with this and how we came to this point. Janice asked me a couple of months ago, I think, to provide a little bit of advice on 3 referrals, fairly significant land use development referrals that had been referred to UBID. And I wasn't sure of what the past practice has been with respect to bringing these types of referrals to the board's attention, but I thought it was really important that they be put in front of you, that you be brought up to speed, given a bit of background, just shown the magnitude of these referrals, and given the opportunity to comment back to agencies. In essence, there's 3 of them. 2 are from Union Bay Estates, and the referral was, I would think, received in June of this year. The third referral is a rezoning application submitted by Upper Island Developments to the Comox Valley Regional District. And although we're beyond the initially requested 30 or 45-day deadline for comments, I've spoken to both the ministry and to the regional district, and they're prepared and welcoming any comments that the board would like to submit. I'll just briefly overview the 3 of them, and then you might want to deal with Union Bay Estates separately from the other one. The first referral from Union Bay Estates, and actually it's 2 of them, but they're companion referrals. One is a proposed plan of subdivision. So this is further down the process than a rezoning. It's a subdivision plan for the creation of 5 fee simple lots. And the material is in Appendix A, and I've numbered and circled the pages for ease of reference. The first referral, as I say, is for a proposed plan of subdivision for the creation of 5 fee simple lots, multi-residential and single-family detached residential, but there's not a lot of detail on the type of development that's proposed for each lot. And the applications don't appear to include any sort of, substantive design details with respect to the water system. And that's the most significant implication for UBID, is on the water system. The second companion referral, again by Union Bay Estates, is to create 38 strata lots within one of the proposed Bearland strata lots. Again, the type of development is not, it hasn't been provided. There's not a huge amount of detail there. But again, the most important comment is that certainly there would be potentially substantive implications on the district's distribution and supply system. I asked for comments from our engineering consultant, Ken Dahl. He's provided those comments. And my report. And I also asked for comments from your fire chief and for your public works superintendent. The chief has submitted some written comments, actually 3 referrals, and those are on page 16. And again, I think it's really important that you, you take a look at those comments, invite any comments right now from the fire chief and from the public works superintendent. I think Mr. Dahl, from a technical perspective, has really outlined a huge pile of questions and made some preliminary comments. And again, there are potentially substantive implications for UBID, particularly on the water side of things. The Upper Island developments, I'll just overview that really
Gary,
briefly as well. Yeah.
Do you think it would be worthwhile pausing there and dealing with Union Bay Estates first, or would you like to go through everything?
No, however you want to do it, we can pause. And if you'd refer to those comments and questions of the engineering consultant. But this is also the opportunity, as I say, to entertain any comments from the public works superintendent, the fire chief, and from the board as well, so that these can be compiled and sent back to, in the case of these 2 referrals, to the Ministry of Transportation, because that's the agency that forwarded them. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman, and we can talk about any comments you may have or the staff may have on the Union Bay Estates 2 subdivision applications.
I would like to hear from our public works superintendent and our fire chief of their main concerns or recommendations, so that we can be clear and ensure that those are included in the report.
I think I'm on mute. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. So yeah, I did talk with Gary. And my point of view at this point is, until we get some really good understanding of what they're going to require, it's there's major upgrades that would have to happen to the system to do these proposed subdivisions, especially the Upper Island development. I think the Union Bay Estates one is really quite straightforward. I don't have much problems with that one at all. But the Upper Island development one would require substantial upgrades. There's no question about it.
Okay, let's hold that one until we get to it. But basically on the Union Bay Estate ones, you don't have technical concerns with those?
not at all. No, it's quite straightforward.
Chief Ham?
From the fire side on the, they were pretty basic. It was just, you know, fire hydrant spacing, road widths, no dead ends, you know, pretty typical stuff, anything. So we have no concerns.
Thank you. Trustees, any comments on these?
I've got some questions, Ian.
Then you shall ask them.
Thank you. So just we're doing the Union Bay Estates. So the first one is for 5 fee simple lots and the second one is for 38 strata lots. So am I right here? So that's 43 hookups to water. Is that what that means?
Yes, it's around that number, I believe so, yes.
So that's what he's asking for, 43 water hookups.
That's correct.
So we can provide that with our current water treatment plant.
That's correct.
One of the things that the engineering consultant is recommending, and Dan could probably speak to this, I know he can better than me, is that he's recommending that UBID review the water usage data from this past summer to update our current water consumption as part of this review process, if it gets to that.
Okay, and then this property, Ian, is all serviceable in it's in the area that is legally or insurable to cover with our fire department?
Oh, sorry, was that for me?
That was
Yep.
for other Ian.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
So your question again, sorry?
Sorry, it was, so this property that, these lots, they're in our fire service area, no problem. They're not too high for the pressure and so forth.
As far as I know from the water side, that it's okay. I haven't been told anything other than that it's functional.
You know where these lands are that they're going to develop?
Yeah, I've seen them on the map, yeah.
Okay.
For reference, the 5 fee simple lots are on the south side of the Island Highway. In other words, the inland side of the Island Highway, north of Washer Creek.
Okay.
And the 38 Bearland strata lots are on the north side, aka Coal Hills side of the lot, of the highway.
So we'd have to put in all the infrastructure to all the water, the pipes to get the water to these lots. There are no pipes to get water to these lots now, right?
That's correct.
And CECs would supposedly cover the cost of building those? They should? Or they would?
I think the question is, how would the costs of constructing the plumbing infrastructure be paid for?
The developer will pay for all the pipe and material.
Leading to the lots too?
That's correct.
That's in their agreement or whatever? I thought Union Bay had to provide the infrastructure getting to the lots.
No.
No, not at all.
No.
May I ask a
That,
question?
I think the last time. Certainly.
Go for it, Susanna.
Well, I'm confused in that I don't know where it says the developer will be paying for all the pipes leading to his property.
Me neither. That's a new one on me.
It's in our subdevelopment bylaw, I'm pretty sure, if you look that one up.
So doesn't he have to pay CECs? And what are those for? If
CECs will be paid when the house is put online and they're using the system.
The CECs are paid for by the individual property owner, the end property owner. And in my mind, CECs represent your share of the existing infrastructure, like the water treatment plant and the dam and the big pipeline to bring it down, and the distribution system that is already in place.
Yeah, my recollection from the conversion study is that those CECs were last reviewed in 2014, and you typically recommend that they be reviewed every 5-6 years. So it's probably timely to review those to make sure that they're totally reflective of the of costs that should be charged. But I agree with Dan in terms of the onus is on the developer to pay these types of hookup and infrastructure and extension charges.
Okay. So
Could I?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Suzanne. Sorry.
I would like to hear from our water superintendent. The engineer listed some very specific concerns, and I don't have his letter right in front of me, but it related to the lack of detail, for example, around these strata lots and 38 strata lots, and the possibility that we would be inheriting a system that the strata lots, like there were, I'm not sure if we've had enough time to digest the recommendations made by our engineer, which has a lot of cautions that I have real concerns with.
What I've seen is a couple of comments from there that, and they're in Gary's report, right, is that there hasn't been a plan of the water system submitted, right? And that's required by our subdivision bylaw, that they would submit a plan that says how would the water system be laid out. So, that certainly has to be a part of our commentary that says you owe us that. We have to see it so that we can approve it. The second piece that was of interest to me is that the engineer said that the way that the bare land strata had been laid out, that it said that there would be easements and right-of-ways granted for the installation of utilities. And that by inference that it implied that we would then end up owning and maintaining that infrastructure. And so that to me has to be sorted out and agreed to in some form, that we are clear and definitive on who will own and maintain that infrastructure. And there's a piece of it that we also need to go back to on our CECs, is that there is a different rate, CEC rate, that I wasn't really aware of until I went and reviewed it, for strata lots. And that, as I recall that number, it's in the range of $7,500. And that a fee simple lot would attract a rate of $8,900. So to me, and I'm speculating in this or assuming, is that a reason that you would have a lower CEC is because the strata corporation takes responsibility for that infrastructure. But I don't know that for sure. It's just, to me, it seems funny that you would have a lower rate and no additional responsibilities.
I agree. I also would like more clarity around what comes to my mind when I speak about this, when the strata lot is mentioned, is that development that is near Qualicum, which is a bunch of houses stuck together, and they're not year-round residents. They are vacation homes, essentially. And I'm really concerned that this is, I'm not sure, is this that? And that's a whole different ball game that I'm not entirely comfortable with. So that's where I'm coming from. There is not enough information in these two proposals for us to make an educated decision. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, basically what Mr. Dole is saying here in his letters is that there's not been a lot of information that's been provided, and he would certainly be recommending that further specifics be provided by the applicant, location and number of service connections, design demands, required fire flow demands, minimum and maximum water pressure requirements, and design drawings, so that we could then, do a more detailed comprehensive assessment. The feeling may be now at this point in time that this proposed development would be within the capacity parameters of the current water supply and distribution system. But having said that, a lot more detail should be provided by the applicant so we could do a more thorough, detailed review. So I think it's just important that these comments be put out there now before this application, gets further down into the system, because it is a subdivision application at this point in time, and the approval authority is the ministry. So they'd be looking for comments back in terms of any further information that we think should be required of the applicant.
Thank you.
So how do we incorporate that comment from the engineer that says that we would like to further understand ownership of infrastructure for the strata?
Mr. Chairman, typically what happens is, subject to the board's approval, we'd write a letter back to the ministry with a copy to the applicant, attaching a copy of this report and attaching a copy of our engineering consultant's letter so that they clearly know the information that's being requested.
Fantastic. It's more than just this report. All the attachments go as well.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments on this particular component from anybody before?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I think basically the answer is we need more information regarding the design of the water system for this new subdivision, et cetera. And then a decision can be made by the board. We just don't have enough right now. That's all I can really say about it.
Okay, thank you. Susanna or Eve, anything further here?
I would like to add that, with our subdivision water regulation bylaw, things are built according to the MMCD highest standards. All of those would be followed. That's what the Union Bay follows. So depending on what they need and how much they need it, then it would be, all of those regulations would be followed and be built to the highest standards.
I guess we need to hear that from Union Bay Estates, the developer making the proposal.
They don't have a choice. They have to do it to our specifications, and we follow the highest.
Our bylaw requires that.
That's correct, yes.
So to summarize, what they have submitted does not fit our bylaw.
What they've submitted doesn't tell us everything we need to know.
That's right.
But what they're going to build, if we let them go through and go ahead, is a water system, an extension of the water system that is going to be built to the higher standards. And that's what we require.
And that's why, Mr. Chairman, I think it's very important that these comments get back to the ministry so they can also be provided to the applicant so he knows what further information they need to submit at whatever timing they may choose, so that we can do a more thorough evaluation, against the requirements of our subdivision.
Okay. Shall we move on to the Upper Island developments portion?
Mr. Chairman, this is a separate referral. It's the third one in the package. It's a very different kettle of fish, and if I'm understanding the public works superintendent correctly, this kicks it into a bit of a different dimension in terms of the capacity of the current UBID water supply and system. This is a potentially significant application. Remember, it's a rezoning application submitted by Upper Island Developments to the Comox Valley Regional District. My understanding in talking to the planner there is that the regional district, and we'll know better about this pretty soon once we start the conversion, is proposing to introduce the rezoning bylaw in the first quarter of next year, with a view to holding a public hearing, again, presumably in the first quarter of next year. It's a rezoning application, less typical detail though you'll see in than in a subdivision application. It's an application for a 55 hectare parcel. It's shown in one of the figures on page 32 of your Appendix C. And under the current zoning, without a rezoning application, 23 parcels would be permitted, which my understanding, according to the engineer, would, if developed to the maximum density under current zoning, would potentially for 46 new houses, okay? And connecting to the UBIDs cannot be required under current zoning. However,
you blanked out what? I missed that, Gary. Sorry, you're skipping.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Under the current zone's minimum lot area and density regulations, so current zoning would provide for 23 parcels, which to the maximum density under current zoning could permit up to 46 new houses.
Yeah.
But under current zoning, connecting to the community water system isn't required. But this is an application to create a new zone, and with the intention to connect each lot to UBID's community water system. So they'd be looking to connect each lot to the system. And under the requested rezoning, the intention is to connect each lot to the water system, and up potentially to create up to 114 lots. Okay. And to accommodate the proposal, an additional zone would be created. And if developed to the maximum density, 114 lots, that would enable up to 228 dwellings, our understanding is. So this is a substantial rezoning application. Again, in this particular case, there's a lot less detailed development criteria. So a lot more unanswered questions even than on the Union Bay Estates applications. So as Dan has said, potentially significant implications on the water supply and delivery system. And I think that although I didn't ask the engineering consultant, because it's just a rezoning application, to provide detailed comments, because he clearly doesn't have enough information to do that. All of his comments with respect to the Union Bay Estates applications would be applicable in this particular case, in terms of a lot more information that's required. But this one's different. It's a rezoning application. Your comments would be submitted back to the regional district, and they would be provided as part of the public hearing process if this goes to a public hearing in the first quarter of next year, which I understand from their planner is the intention. So there'd be lots of opportunity for agency and public input on that. But again, I invite the comments of the Public Works Superintendent and the Fire Chief. Fire Chief submitted comments, which are generic to all three referrals, but any other comments from staff would be welcome.
As far as I'm concerned, with the Upper Island, it's just too many unknowns right now, Gary. And it obviously, until we see something further, there's really not a whole bunch. I mean, if we're looking at 228 dwellings, we're looking at twinning the DAF plant. We're looking at putting in the second reservoir. You would also be looking at some type of a booster station to require fire flows that would be required. So a huge undertaking, basically. It would be a lot. It'd be a big jump.
And comments from trustees, thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I think really, like Gary said, it's basically a rezoning at this time, and the development end of it, it's probably going to be in the future. And it is a huge undertaking because of the ground levels and everything else where this thing is going to be. So I think it's basically the rezoning that will be the only thing we'll be looking at the moment.
Could I, am I correct in my understanding that this, the Upper Islands 55-acre parcel, is it not at a higher elevation than the properties that we were discussing, the Union Bay? And that is a factor that adds to the potential cost?
That's right.
It's at the same elevation as our upper pressure zone right now. However, it falls below that pressure zone. A lot of the properties are downhill. So there will be a few at the top that are obviously at a lower pressure, but whatever it takes for them to get the water, they will be paying for.
So in other words, this booster station that you speak of to increase pressure would be at the cost of the developer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so, but the addition of a second DAF train would not be at the cost of the developer. That would be funded through KEX or something like that.
I would
It
hesitate
should be.
that. I would think it would be under the developer if he wants to put 228 dwellings in.
So
You don't have
if
the
I,
capacity to do that.
yeah. If I can just, I recall the decision by the board with relation to the water and infrastructure agreement that we had with Union Bay Estates, which was, and this came from trustee Elliott, but the entire board was in agreement, which was the principle being that that developers pay for any upsizing or any infrastructure improvements in order to service their lot. And if that includes a DAF plant, which basically any development permit from this point on essentially triggers the need for a second DAF, that we as a board are clear in all fairness to developers in that expectation that those costs are borne by them, including the DAF plant. Even though the DAF plant is referenced in that infrastructure agreement in relation to Union Bay Estates, I think it should be standard. But it's a matter of whoever trips the trigger going over that number of households. I think this is really important.
Yep, that's a fair statement.
Yeah, Susan is correct. That was the case with Union Bay Estates, and I have to agree with her on that 100%.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I'm just wondering, how does this work? How does this work with our commitment? We've already signed agreements to supply water to the Union Bay Estates. How much water have we got? Is there no limit?
We have not signed an agreement.
The water agreement with Union Bay Estates, or whatever they called themselves at the time, what was the build out? Was 3,000 houses or something?
That's people, not houses.
Yeah, no, as far as I'm
Let's let Dan speak.
We haven't signed any commitments to Union Bay Estates regarding water.
We don't have a water agreement with them?
Not at all. Not that I'm aware of.
Yes, we do.
What?
How much?
We do have a water agreement with Union Bay Estates.
That we can supply water.
That's right.
And their ultimate build out is many, many homes. So how can we possibly serve with our current water license?
We can't with our current. So what happens with the Union Bay Estates is it's a phased approach. So when they get past their first phase, they have to go right back to the start of the drawing board again, look at the capacity of the lake, and go right from the start all over again.
That is correct.
Meaning we would have to look to solicit additional water licenses.
That could be, or raising the dam, or
At their expense.
at their exactly, Ted. Yeah.
But I still think Eve's question is a good one.
Chairman,
right?
in a way that
I'm confused. If you know all that, Danny, how could you not know we had a water agreement with them? I'm really confused.
I made it wrong. What I meant was we don't have an agreement saying we're giving them 79, 80 houses before we give it to anybody else.
No, okay.
They're in the same boat as everybody else. I mean, if we get 100 people show up and build 100 houses next week,
Yeah.
then we're done. We're at our limit, and from there on out, we either need another reservoir, we either need another DAF, we may need to raise the dam, but that's where we are.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
But is there an issue or a complexity with respect to managing two developers? And like, here's a question that's going through my head, right? Is it just whoever gets there first is going to trigger the DAF plant? So that doesn't that then say, well, I'm not going to trigger the DAF plant. So do we have to get some sort of three-way negotiation going to saying,
Yeah, I think that could be a possibility. And I think with the Union Bay Estates, their first phase is 43 houses, which falls underneath our 100. I think they're probably trying to get those done as quickly as possible. But I think if another developer were to come in and they're asking for 37 houses or 114 parcels or 228 dwellings, that's going to trigger. Definitely.
I'd like to hear from Gary on his thoughts on how you manage two of these things going on at once.
Well, to a certain extent, the timing of these is a little bit out of your control to a certain extent. I'd make two big points through the transition process. And it's good that these came to our attention. That's why I thought it was important to get to the board. The 2 points that I think should be raised or considered by Union Bay and made to the region is that, gosh, if this is the type of applications, size and magnitude and complexity that are coming down the pipe at some point in time, maybe not, but let's assume they will. There's two big pieces of work that I think would need to be really relooked at. We need to do our homework in advance. One of them is on the subdivision bylaw that's been previously raised. I think it needs to have another look at. There's some points that were brought forward by the solicitor that needs to be, I think, incorporated into that bylaw. So I'd be focusing and bringing to the attention of the region the need to do that. And we could certainly start that process ourselves even before conversion to make sure that that's as tight and addresses all of the things that Dan has mentioned in regards to, the requirements that would be put on the development community. The second point would be the CECs, and those haven't been, I think, adjusted since 2014. I think it's timely to start looking at those again. So you'd want to have them up to date and in place so that we're recouping the maximum amount of development revenue from these development applications if and when they come forward. And that's work I think that you're not going to do overnight. You're not going to complete before probably the conversion date, but it's certainly that, we'd be recommending to the region that work needs to be done.
Okay. And then I see a contradiction here. The CECs to recoup what? We haven't paid for anything because the developers are paying for everything. And number two, I think we need to put in our comments to the province that we have capacity issues. We don't even know what our capacity is. Just getting more water licenses, is that going to solve it? Do we have the water to serve? How many lots can we serve? I know this is a big if and nobody seems to know exactly, and there's lots of difference of opinion here. So I haven't heard the water capacity brought up in all these discussions.
Well, CECs, my understanding, are like development cost charges, right? So you should be reviewing those every
Yeah.
5-6 years to
But-
make sure that they're reflective and that you know they're at a magnitude that's fair and reasonable and defensible. The issue of capacity, what I'm hearing from Dan is that on the, and to correct me if I'm wrong, on the Union Bay Estates subdivision applications, on the face of it, there would be the current capacity within the supply and distribute subdivision applications. But with the potential development application for Upper Island developments, with that magnitude and size of lots, there's no way. There'd have to be significant upgrading done to the system.
Upgrading, or do we have to find out whether we have the water capacity? You know what I
Dan?
mean?
Currently, we're allowed to take 28 liters per second out of the lake. We're only using about 8. So I'm just trying to look through my notes, but one of my reports not too long ago was basically how much we go through per year compared to how much we are allowed to take, and it's just a drop in the bucket. So our capacity is huge. Whether now our treatment plant can only produce 14 liters per second.
Yeah.
So if we go over the top of that, then obviously we need new treatment. But as far as capacity at the lake, we're using, I'm just trying to find it now, but it wasn't I think it was about 2 meetings ago that we discussed this, Marie. And we have a large capacity of water at the lake.
Yeah, and when I use the word capacity, I'm not talking about the amount of water at the lake. I'm talking about the guts of the system.
The guts of the system can handle 14 liters per second. Currently, we're running at about 8. And at the highest point of the summer, we can get to 12, but that is only for about an 8-hour period.
Okay.
So
And I think we should clarify the CECs. They would cover from the main line to the meter. That's what that covers. The developer doesn't cover that. Correct, Danny?
The CECs are paid when the homeowner connects to the water system.
That's right.
Correct.
They're like development cost charges.
Yeah.
So I think, may I say something?
Yes.
I think what the concern that Eve has raised, and I share her concern, is, and when we use the word capacity, it is being interchanged with capacity of the water treatment plant as per our license and the structure of the DAF plant versus how much water Langley Lake holds.
Correct.
And that question is an unknown. And the water report written by Jim Madison, which was Safe, Clean and Clear Water, has made it very clear that we have not had a full hydrological study done of Langley Lake. We don't really know what the capacity of that lake is.
We've had a
And that is-
bathymetrical study done of the lake.
That was done a very long time ago, Danny. And certainly 20 years ago. So
Not 20 years ago, no. I have it.
if you're talking about 2008, that,
2009 maybe.
yeah, so that is not a full, that was not a full assessment. And that has been raised in the Clean and Clear Water Report as something needing to be done. And I think that's what Eve is referring to, is that before we pass a subdivision, don't we need to know that in fact we could, let's say they fulfill all of the obligations, upgrade the infrastructure.
Yes.
Yes. And I would agree with Eve's concern that yes, we
Yes.
need a full hydrological assessment of Langley Lake. That's to
That-
protect
that
our
is-
interest.
And that is correct. And the developer will pay for that assessment.
The developer will pay for his own assessment. I'd like to, you know,
It's
an assessment, I guess we're agreeing, Danny, that an assessment is
Yes.
required. Okay,
Definitely.
thank you.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
But my question is, are we diving a little deep here, or are we, do we need to bring this up to say, what is it that we need to communicate back at this early stage
Very early stage.
of this? And I'd look to our interim administrator to guide us in what we need to communicate back. I'm feeling like asking for a hydrological study at this point in time might be too detailed, but I'd love to hear that.
I think that for the first two referrals from Union Bay Estates, I think they should largely, the comments that are sent back should be substantively those from Mr. Dahl, which are actually more questions and requests for further information, because those are subdivision applications, basically making the point that we would need that information to provide a more thorough analysis of what would be required from the developer if, you know, at the building permit stage post subdivision. In the case of this particular application, a rezoning, a lot less information and detail that's been provided. What I'm hearing, and again, I stand to be corrected, is that this is the magnitude, the scope, the size of this application is basically beyond, and I don't want to use the word capacity, it's beyond the capability of the current system to accommodate those magnitude of connections, and that pretty substantial upgrades would be required to the system in order to accommodate that application of up to 114 dwellings. So we basically, I would think you'd focus your comments on that. And I do agree with Dan that depending on your subdivision bylaw, what that says, and most, if not all of these requirements, upgrading requirements to the system would be paid for by the developer through contributions, your development cost charge contributions, CECs, but also, part of your fees for filing the application.
So that's kind of the level at which we should be speaking back at this, is saying, thank you for your application. It's significant. It will exceed the capabilities of our current water system, so further negotiations are required.
Dan, have I said that basically correct in regards to Upper Island developments?
You got it. Yes.
Okay. I think, Mr. Chairman, you keep it fairly general at this stage.
Okay. And trustees, how are we feeling about this?
I think it's pretty well been said what needs to be done, and we have to go ahead and do it for the safety of the people of Union Bay, as well as the people that are already on the system, so that they know that their system is not going to be overtaxed in the future without safeguards.
Good comment.
And one final point, Mr. Chairman, keep in mind that if this does go to public hearing, and I don't know what the practice has been in the past, but if it goes to public hearing, the UBID would have the opportunity to make representation at the public hearing directly to the regional board when those bylaws are presented.
Eve, Susanna, anything further?
no, I like the idea of including all the comments made here, as well as the engineer and Gary's comments and your summary, Ian.
So I guess, Gary has made some recommendations at the back of his report. Gary, I presume there's probably a little bit more having come out of this meeting that you might use to finalize your reports? Or are you comfortable with them the way they are and sending them as they are?
No, I think, Mr. Chairman, I'm pretty comfortable. You know, I've heard the comments. I think I understand. I may have a further conversation with Dan so that I can put a little bit of a finer point on some of his comments with respect to the type of upgrades that would be required potentially to the system, particularly for the third referral. But I think I've got enough to go on at this stage.
Do we require a motion to approve the submission of this report, or do we just need a motion to adopt your report? What do you think we need?
I think just a motion essentially to receive the report and instruct the staff to provide the comments and questions from our engineering consultant and from staff to provide those comments to the various agencies is sufficient. And I'll draft a letter and I can run it by you, Mr. Chairman, beforehand.
Okay.
So
Janice,
moved.
Janice, do you have that written down? I think that was a yes. So moved. All in favor of the motion as described by Interim Administrator Nason?
I'm in favor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that good piece of work, Gary.
Yeah.
Final item on the agenda. This one should go reasonably quickly, and then we'll move to landowner questions if there are any. So the motion is that the board agrees to continue providing 24/7 on-call support for water treatment and distribution at the increased cost provided for in the ratified collective agreement. I have a second. Second from Trustee Haroldson. Any discussion, comment? And my only comment is we've adjusted the costs in the budget to be more in line with the average costs of all employees that would be involved. So I'm very happy with that. So if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Yes.
That's unanimous approval. And that would be the end of the formal part of the agenda. If there are any questions, Janice, if you can unmute the landowners to see if there are any questions that they want to propose, that would be great. And I will call by name. I believe there's only two on the call, but if I start, I'm just going to go across my line. And the first one I come across is Mary Reynolds. Mary, just want to approach directly, see if you have any questions you would like to ask. I'll turn that question if everybody heard what it was. Is the second water tower actually included in the water and infrastructure agreement? So I don't know if Trustee Haroldson, Trustee Calger.
Not to my recollection. The DAF plant is named specifically, but I not to my recollection. I don't have it right in front of me. I think Mary's.
Dan, do you have any other information on that?
I don't have that agreement in front of me, but yeah, I don't have a comment on that without looking at the agreement.
Yeah. Ted, any thoughts, or is just?
Well, the only thoughts I have is that if there's going to be an increase in water volume, it's not just only the DAF plant that's required. It's also another water storage facility because of the firefighting purposes and everything at the same time.
So I understand that the need for, sorry, Mary. Ted, any comment on that? Or it's just,
Only comment I can make on it is that if there is an increase, that means there has to be increase in storage as well.
so are you
It
aware that?
doesn't go without the other.
Yeah. Okay, but do you know if the agreement actually says, what Mary's saying is she's got the agreement in front of her and there isn't a specification
if
tower. She
Mary's-
just asked me to clarify.
I have to say, if Mary has it in front of her and it's not in there, well, then it's not in there. But my understanding would be that any increase in development that requires another DAF plant requires water storage increase. So again, that's a fine point.
Mary, are you okay with that answer? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for your comment. I appreciate it.
Paul Allard, any questions? That sounds like a no. Anybody else, any further questions, Mary, or? All right, so that sounds like we've come to the end of the public questions section. So I guess it's time for adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to make that.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
We're all in favor?
Aye.
4 hands in the air. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Thank you to the team for showing up
Yeah.
and supporting us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks to all the staff.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.